to act this way forces you to scream my name, then pretend that you can't stay. Tell me who I have to be to get to reciprocity. See, no one loves you more than me, and no one ever will. No matter how I think we'll, you always seem to let me down. It ain't working, it ain't working. And when I try to walk away, you hurt yourself to make me stay. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Shouts out to everybody here. Much love to you. Really do appreciate your time. Thank you for stopping by. On this edition, we're going to be talking about some of the moves the Saints will be possibly thinking about making after the 2022 season. Now, we all know that the Saints last week, unfortunately, were eliminated from playoff contention. And this game versus the Carolina Panthers is basically just bragging rights, into the next season. We know that the Carolina Panthers beat the Saints the first time they played them in Carolina. And the Saints are going to finish up in the Dome versus the Carolina Panthers. And both teams are really playing, inspired football right now. I mean, Steve Wilkes has the Carolina Panthers playing inspired. Dennis Allen has the Saints on a little bit of a winning streak. So got to give credit where credit is due with that. But the free agency market is going to be open. There are a lot of guys that are part of the New Orleans Saints roster that may not find themselves on the team next year. And we're going to be discussing that on this episode. Shouts out to everybody that's here. Shouts out to everybody that took part in yesterday's show. It was very, very informative. A lot of people chimed in. A lot of perspectives were had. Shouts out to the Buffalo Bills fans that that inboxed me and messaged me, talk about how much they enjoyed it and gave respect to not only myself, but members of the Who Dat Nation, those that were here yesterday, giving their well wishes to safety Damar Hamlin. I know the Buffalo Bills Mafia, the Bills Mafia are really discouraged by what's going on. But if you've been following what's been going on with Damar Hamlin, there's more positive news that has come out. Shouts out to his uncle who talked to the media, gave everyone an update about the condition of Damar Hamlin. It looks like, he's starting to, kind of turn a corner. I mean, it's still touch and go. He's still in critical condition, but nevertheless, is more positive news than what we seen on Monday night. And I think we all can truly say that we're praying for that brother's strength and praying for the family during this tough time. But as we talk about sports here today, the New Orleans Saints Week 18 matchup versus the Carolina Panthers. After this game, the season is over for the New Orleans Saints, and you have to wonder to yourself what's going to happen with this team. I think that we all are kind of sort of coming to the conclusion that, Dennis Allen is going to still be here as the New Orleans Saints head coach. We know that for a fact. Probably not the best of news for some of us. We feel like, the New Orleans Saints probably can get something better than that. But, I mean, you can't deny the fact that he has these guys winning football games, regardless to what type of character, what type of guys you have in the locker room. He is the guy who is coaching this team. And if we're going to complain about him not doing the right things when the team fails, I think we just can't have it both ways, even myself. I mean, I went back and I've listened to a couple of shows, and I kind of stand by what I'm saying, but at the same time, if I'm going to criticize the guy for like failing and messing the team up and not being disciplined, then I guess I have to concede to say that, yeah, they playing for him, I guess. I don't know how true that is, but they're winning and he's the coach. But I think we all can agree that more than likely, unless something like crazy happened, like, Mickey Loomis decides to go back to Sean Payton, or a real wild card, Jim Harbaugh comes close to New Orleans Saints or something, Dennis Allen is most likely going to come back. But that leads to these players, man. This leads to the players here. And right now I have a list of players that are going to be free agents or restricted free agents at the end of this season. Now, I ask that you bear with me as I read off a couple of these names. These guys are unrestricted free agents. We got Bradley Roby, Davion Yamada, Deonte Hardy, Marcus Davenport, Andy Dalton, Jarvis Landry, Mark Ingram, Shai Tuttle, PJ Williams, Tano Passanio, JT Gray, Daniel Sorensen, Kentavious Street, Dwayne Washington, David Johnson, Justin Evans, Ethan Greenwich, Juwan Johnson. Chase Hansen is a restricted free agent along with Juwan Johnson. And these guys that I'm about to read are going to be restricted free agents as well. Chase Hansen, Albert Huggins, Marquez Callaway. And you also have some restricted free agents in Blake Gillikin, Kelvin Throckmorton, Andrew Dowell, and the unrestricted free agent is Kaden Ellis. So those are some of the guys that are on this list. As I'm looking at this list right now, I mean, we can kind of go down the list and maybe like pull a couple guys that we feel like, were a part of the Saints' plans to be successful in 2022. It probably panned out or did not pan out. The first name that I'm looking at on the list at the top was Bradley Roby. Now, Bradley Roby came via trade from the Houston Texans to the New Orleans Saints. It seemed like it was a really good idea. It seemed like the Saints during that time, we're looking for that number 2 cornerback. But the good news about it was last year, Paulson Adebo started to come on, and it made it really, really hard for Bradley Roby to hit the field. So it was a good situation to be in if you are the New Orleans Saints, because you had 2 really decent, really good cornerbacks that were out there playing. So they put Bradley Roby mostly in the slot. Sometimes, had him on the outside and had Paulson Adebo starting opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. Bradley Roby has had some ups and downs as a member of the New Orleans Saints. I have to admit, I mean, he's played relatively well. And when he wasn't out there, you can really tell that he wasn't out there, when he didn't play, and when he was out there, he made some plays as well. He's not going to knock your socks off. He's not the second coming to Darrelle Revis. And I mean, he's definitely not on the level of a Marshawn Lattimore, but he's a solid guy. But when you look at the Saints cornerback room, I know they got that old saying, right? Can you have enough cornerbacks in your room, especially since it's a position that guys seem to go down quite a bit? We've seen, Paulson Adebo, we expected much more out of him. It seemed like, he's going through a little bit of a sophomore slump. Lante Taylor has really come on, really living up to that second-round pick, looking more like a first-round pick. But Bradley Roby gives the Saints a little bit of depth. Okay, so I'm going to put a question mark over by Bradley Roby's name, because I really feel like, the Saints can use him in different ways, especially since, he is a guy that you can put out there and he can make plays, and especially at a position like cornerback that guys often get hurt. So I would not be upset if the Saints try to bring back Bradley Roby, but I will say this. I think that a guy that has won a Super Bowl, a guy that wants to be a starter and still feels like he has something to offer, may be kind of hard for the New Orleans Saints to be able to bring him back in some capacity. I think that he feels like, he probably can go out here and get a little bit more money. And I also feel like, the fact that he has won a Super Bowl Sometimes when guys win a Super Bowl a little bit early in their career, they're not chasing that Lombardi anymore. It's mostly about going out here. They can play for a team that's struggling, as long as that team is paying them X amount of dollars. So I wouldn't be mad if the Saints bring back Bradley Roby for depth purposes, but I completely understand if they did not acquire him at the end of this season, if they don't re-sign him and he goes somewhere else, I would completely understand that because, the situation and, maybe the Saints decide maybe they can go in a different direction. We know that Alontae Taylor has really been playing well. We know that Paulson Adebo has been up and down throughout the season, but I don't think the Saints are ready to give up on him just yet. Now, the only way I can look at them bringing back a guy like a Bradley Roby if the Saints decide if they want to trade a guy like Paulson Adebo somewhere else. And now, before you start laughing and making fun of it and saying, oh, it don't make no sense, nobody wants Paulson Adebo, that is not true. This guy is a guy that's he'll be going into his third season, and he's a guy that has started a lot of games in the National Football League. So I'm not saying he's going to be, you can get first round capital for him or anything like that, but you definitely can get like maybe a fourth or fifth round pick, for a guy like Paulson Adebo. And I know, when you look at where he was drafted, it makes like perfect sense. Look, and I get it, right? Because here's the reality of it all. Like Alontae Taylor has played better than Paulson Adebo, and he deserves, in my honest opinion, now he has to follow it up with a solid training camp, and once again, and he also has to win that battle of attrition. He was getting injured, and that was one of the main reasons why he was sliding down the depth chart. But he has proven that he deserves to be at least in consideration to be the starter for the New Orleans Saints opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. So, but as far as Bradley Roby, I'm gonna put a question mark right there. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna read some of your comments, and then we'll go to someone else that maybe that kind of sticks out on this list. Let's go ahead and read some of your comments. It says Roby expendable, but the way we get injured, I don't know. Exactly, Drew. When you look at the cornerback position, it's a position where guys get hurt more so than not, right? You can never have too many guys that can cover, especially guys that can cover on the inside as well as the outside. And if you've been following the Saints for a few years, you know that normally what they would do is they'll have a guy that's a really solid slot corner, but that guy lacks when it comes to playing on the outside. Case in point, PJ Williams. PJ Williams was a really good, decent slot corner, but when you put him on the outside, it was smoked like brisket, burnt like a biscuit. That was where that term actually came from here on the State of the Saints podcast because of his inability to play on the outside. But what the Saints have been doing, and what I have an appreciation for, is them drafting and also trading and also signing guys that can not only play in the slot, but also play on the outside. And also, shouts out to the New Orleans Saints. Also, you got to give them credit with this, is that they understand that PJ Williams was one of the most solid tacklers in that secondary. He wasn't the fastest guy. So what did they do? They found a different lane for him and made him a safety, and honestly rejuvenated his career. Because if you were following PJ Williams, man, the narrative was not good. I'm going to say, I'll just stand alone when I say this. I didn't think the guy was good enough. I was like, man, why the Saints keep on signing this dude back to these one-year deals? He must know where the bodies are buried. It was jokes galore about PJ Williams. And I'm eating crow about that because now they put him in a position where he thrives and succeeds. Now, he had a little bit of a down season due to injuries. Shouts out to him. He tried to fight as much as he possibly can to try to get back on the field. But he is a solid safety at a position, where the Saints desperately need some really good safety play. He does a really good job out there with the tackling and also his ability to be able to cover some of those tight ends in the league. So, I look at, the secondary of teams at times. I'm like, can you have enough cornerbacks? Can you have enough safeties? That's the big question. Let's see. Resign Johnson for sure. We'll get into that a little bit later when his name comes up. I'm going to go ahead and read like some of the comments about people that we kind of referred to when we're talking to Bradley Roby. Sydney says, Adebo struggled this year, but I have faith he have a solid third year. Yeah, man, look, I'm not one of those people where, he has a down year and then all of a sudden, I don't think that he's good enough anymore. The only reason I'm bringing up this trade scenario is because of the same thing that you're referring to, Sydney, his ability to be able to bounce back and be solid for another team. Now, this could be one of those situations where we get mad at because we watch him play and it's one of those CJ Gardner-Johnson situations again, right? If we trade him for a fourth or fifth round pick, it's like we trade him for a bag of Doritos, as I want to say Chosen said a couple episodes ago. But it has absolutely nothing to do with my thoughts about him being able to bounce back. I mean, this dude was dealing with a high ankle sprain for a good little minute. He was going up against some top corners during the time when he was trying to work himself back. And I think sometimes, like, when we see guys hit the field, we look at them and say, okay, man, they playing, so they must be healthy. But that's not always the case. Sometimes these guys get these injections and they start to like try to fight through these injuries, and they're trying to grit through, try to scratch and bite and claw their way through it, but they're not all the way back there. I mean, and it's just touch and go. Sometimes he'll make a play, he'll make a solid tackle, and then there are other times where he get beat like he did against AJ Brown. But that's just the role of the cornerback, man. I mean, it's one of those positions where you can become the hero and the GOAT. I mean, based on play. Like, you can be the hero on one play, and then the next one, you're the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't mean like in a positive way. I mean like the guy, like, get this bum off my field type thing. So that is a tough position to play. But I have a lot of confidence in Paulson Adebo, and I feel like he'll be able to bounce back. And I'm not ready to give up on the guy yet. I'm not buying that whole thing about, him not being good enough. I just think sometimes we're a little bit too harsh on some of these young guys. We don't give them the ability to grow and develop and be everything that they can be. And it takes them some time, and sometimes, they may end up getting beaten coverage. I say it all the time. Like, these wide receivers get paid a lot of money to make these plays. And we seen guys like Marshawn Lattimore, be on the receiving end of a big reception for a team. I mean, he's one of the best. So, some of these guys that's not on his level are going to get beat from time to time. See, Taylor versus Debo in training camp would be epic. I don't think it'll be epic. I honestly think Alontae Taylor going to surpass him. And it's not because I feel like Paulson Adebo's skill set is not good enough. It's probably going to – I will get into this a little bit deeper when I get into a conversation about a Saints player that I feel like it's time for them to let go. He's on this list, and we're going to be talking about it, and it coincides with your comment that you just made, Derek. So I'm going to hold that off for a second. All right. Under no circumstances should Pete come back. None. He is poo on the offensive line. Well, I don't think he's poo on the offensive line, my dog. I just think that he's always often hurt. Like, if you look at Andres Pete, like, as far as his ability to be able to be a run blocker, he's like one of the top run blockers at his position. Like, if you're looking from an analytical standpoint, I just think that, Andres Pete constantly gets hurt. He always seems to be having these nagging injuries that affect his play from time to time. And you'll be surprised, my dog. Like, if the Saints were to trade, I seen somebody say this. I wish I knew who it was, because I want to give this person credit because they made a very great point. They were talking about the Arizona Cardinals and, the Saints possibly making a trade with the Arizona Cardinals for Sean Payton, and the Arizona Cardinals having issues on their offensive line. Would the New Orleans Saints throw in Andres Pete? Would Arizona be interested in that along with Sean Payton for the first round pick of the Arizona Cardinals this season? And I'm like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And I'm pretty sure they will, because even though we look at Andres Pete like he's just a bum, I'm telling you, a lot of people around NFL circles look at this dude as one of the top guards in the league. I mean, take it for what it is. I know all the time, like, here's the reality of it. We only, when it comes to the offensive line, unless they're like doing stuff like Trevor Penning, where people just kind of like constantly try to put it to music, for the most part, the only time we're really looking at offensive line is when they do something wrong. And if you look at Andres Pete from you know, from a coaching standpoint, a lot of people look at him a lot differently than we do. And, you know, I just think that, you know, if they were to trade him, I think there'd be a lot of people that'd be lining up trying to get this dude. As crazy as that sounds, but I mean, it's the truth. I mean, this dude is like a above average guard. It's not too many guards out there, like, you know, that you can say when it comes to run blocking and some of the things that he does that he can't stand up against, as crazy as that may sound. I think the biggest issue we have with Andrews Pete is his lack of toughness. You know, I guess like he's quiet, you know, he's not like a mauler, like how we can get behind a guy like a Trevor Penning because, you know, he shows like that animal instinct, you know what I'm saying? Like he's blocking all the way to the ground, you know what I'm saying? He's holding guys down, he's pinning them down, he's showing the level of nastiness, and you feel like you need that from your offensive lineman. And when a guy is quiet and reserved and you really don't see them doing too much of anything, you know, it's kind of like, man, I don't know about this guy right here. So I feel like that's probably one of the main reasons we look at Andrews P. We think for them to, you know, should have like a nasty side to him, and he doesn't. The next guy on the list is defensive tackle David Onyemata. Now, David Onyemata, I will admit, took a back seat, you know, this past year. He definitely didn't live up to what he did back in 2021 when he had a really good, solid season coming off that suspension. He came with his hair on fire, basically. You know, he was out there, you know, making some really good plays. He was a force in the middle. Once again, he took a step back. And, you know, the Saints' run defense has taken a step back also. And, you know, you have to look at the interior linemen. You got to look at guys like David Onyemata. You got to look at guys like Shy Tuttle. You got to look at guys like Kentavious Street. I mean, you got to look at guys like Malcolm Roach. But the thing about with David Onyemata, you know, he got the 3-year deal a couple of years ago. He exceeded expectation when it comes to his contract. But I know some people feel like they may need to move on from him. But I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to this because I feel like you need that seasoned veteran, you know, on your team. You know, I look at guys like, you know, some of these interior linemen, you know, that these teams have kept around a little bit too long. Like, for example, Geno Atkins. I mean, he had some really good seasons, and Cincinnati kind of kept him around until, you know, the other interior linemen, the young bulls, start to become, you know, big bulls. And all of a sudden, here comes Geno Atkins. They decide to move on from him, right? They move on from him. And, you know, I feel like it kind of would be the same way with David Onyemata. Like, I don't think that Shy Tuttle is the answer. I don't think that Malcolm Roach is the answer. And I don't think Kentavious Street, even though he shows little flashes, I don't think that he's the answer. But I do think that whatever you decide to do, and I feel like the Saints need to address this in the draft. And I'm serious, man. If the Saints were to use a second-round pick, let's just say, for example, things work out with the Sean Payton thing and they go into the second round, I would not be upset if they were to draft in a lineman, interior lineman. I would not be. Like, if they find that right guy they feel like can go on the opposite side of David Onyemata, I feel like you should draft him. That is the direction, because they really need some help in the interior. And if you're going to not re-sign David Onyemata, you have to go out here and find somebody that is better than he is. And it's not too many guys. I have to look at the free agency list when it comes to the interior linemen. And feel free for anybody that may be, you know, not be busy right now to look up free agents that's going to be interior linemen that you feel like would be a good fit for the Saints if they were to move on from Onyemata. You do not move on from David Onyemata unless you find somebody that can give you a little bit more. And I'm not saying equivalent. I'm talking about a little bit more than what he can actually give you. But if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I'm trying to find ways to try to re-sign him, even if it's to like a 2-year deal or something like that, because, you know, you need that veteran leadership on that interior line. Guys like Shy Tuttle and Malcolm Roach, I feel like, you know, they may not re-sign Shy Tuttle, but you still have Malcolm Roach. I didn't see him on the list, so you might find yourself, you know, having to rely on a guy like a Malcolm Roach and keep a veteran like David Onyemata. Let me go ahead and read some of your comments. Let's see. Onyemata gets double teamed a lot. If that's the case, then, you know, the other guy has to be winning that matchup. They got to be winning that matchup. And that's one of the biggest issues that I have. If you was to draft a guy that can be, that force in the middle, or you can find an interior lineman that can be a force alongside David Onyemata, then they cannot afford to double team him. It's because of the lack of, the lack of production, you know what I'm saying? The lack of, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like when it comes to Malcolm Roach and Shy Tuttle, it's like none of those guys really like fear them, right? It's like, okay, man, we'll just put them one-on-one here, get somebody to block them, and they ain't going to do nothing. But this dude right here is the one that we really need to worry about. So that's what I feel like, you know what I'm saying? They're not getting any type of penetration at all, right? So David Onyemata is the one that can get levels of penetration, you know what I'm saying, to be able to stop the run. These other guys, I don't think they fear that much. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons, if he is getting double teamed, is because of the respect that they have for him and the lack of respect they have for the other guys. Cool Sports Poems, thank you very much for the 1999, says, I wish we could cut ties with Dennis Allen, but since that probably won't happen, cut tie with Pete Carmichael and maybe convince Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day to come be the offensive coordinator. Or who do you think might be a good OC, TJ? Look, thank you very much for the 1999 Cool Sports. Look, as far as the whole Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day situation, look, I don't see that happening. Lincoln Riley is making hand over fist with money. I cannot think that unless he was fired by USC, him coming to the National Football League being offensive coordinator, I mean, that's just not going to happen. So is Ryan Day. I mean, I understand that, Ohio State, when it comes to bowl games and stuff like that, they not doing what they normally used to do and all that. I get it, whatever. But they didn't fire him. They're probably not going to fire him unless Urban Meyer decides to come back to the school or something like that, and then all bets are off. But none of these guys are going to leave a comfortable position where they're making millions upon millions of dollars to be an offensive coordinator in the National Football League. But if there's one person that I'm looking at to be an offensive coordinator, to me, this going to sound crazy, but I got to look at the same situations, and I got to look at what they actually need at the time. If the Saints are going to be moving forward and they're going to be looking at themselves as a Super Bowl contender or contending for championships, they're not going to be able to contend for a championship with the same quarterback room that they have right now. So I'm expecting for the New Orleans Saints to try to get better at the quarterback position. Rather, they're drafting a guy, rather they're becoming aggressive. I've been using this scenario, and I'm going to continue to use it until it can no longer be used. If the Saints make a deal with the Arizona Cardinals or the Indianapolis Colts to acquire Sean Payton as their head coach, you're looking at the 4th pick in the draft or the 6th pick in the draft. And that's where you can get guys like Will Levis. That's where you can get guys like CJ Stroud. So if you're going to get the best out of those guys, you're going to need an offensive coordinator / quarterback whisperer type guy to be there. So if that's the case, my offensive coordinator that I'm looking at Frank Reich. Frank Reich would be the first choice for offensive coordinator / quarterback whisperer. Some people were talking about Eric Bieniemy. No, I don't. Guys don't leave offensive coordinator jobs that they are successful at to be an offensive coordinator somewhere else. They move up the ladder. So Eric Bieniemy is, in my opinion, is not going to leave Kansas City unless, he becomes a head coach somewhere. So he's going to stay there until he finds a position. He's going to be with Andy Reid. Another person that I'll be looking at, and y'all can laugh all you want to, but the dude is like a really smart, intelligent offensive coordinator, and that's Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett is another guy that I would have on the list. Another person that will be on the list, but I highly doubt that he will actually leave his situation because it's, like I said, it's the same job, but that would be Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey or Joe Brady. Guys don't leave situations to go to be at the same position. They do it to move up. They get elevated, right? So those are some guys that I'm looking at in particular, and I'm looking at it based on the need of the New Orleans Saints when it comes offensively, because you need a guy that's going to help this quarterback, if he's a young guy, see the field. And you're also going to have to find a guy that's going to be able to put your best players in position to succeed. You can talk about Frank Reich all day, But under Frank Wright, Jonathan Taylor, who is the running back for the Indianapolis Colts, was out there putting up record numbers week after week before he was injured. All right, you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want to say about Carson Wentz, but he had his best year statistically when Frank Wright was his offensive coordinator / quarterback coach. So this is the type of things that the New Orleans Saints need in order for them to get over the hump. You need somebody that's going to be able to get the most out of the best players that you have available and also be able to develop your young quarterback at that position. So those are some of the guys that I'm looking at to help them develop and be, what they need to be and live up to their true potential. I don't buy, I understand NFL and they have narratives and stuff like that, but I look at guys, their track record, their ability to be able to, get the best out of guys. So that definitely would be the guys that are on my list. No doubt about that. But thank you very much for the question. Next person is Deonte Hardy. Look, I like Deonte Hardy when he first came into the league. He was a difference maker. He was a guy that was flipping the field. He was great on special teams. He made plays, but he's a guy who's undersized. And he's always one hit away from being out 4 to 6 weeks. And you can tell the way that he was playing at the beginning of the season, man, fumbling the football, muffing punts and all that kind of stuff like that. It just wasn't a good look. You can tell that Dennis Allen didn't have the confidence in him. I mean, it was times when I didn't even see this guy on the field for the most part. And I was wondering, did he play at all? So I think that when you look at a guy like Deonte Hardy, he's probably going to end up leaving the New Orleans Saints. If I'm a betting man, I think that Deonte Hardy is probably going to end up playing for the New England Patriots. He fits that mold of what Bill Belichick likes in a wide receiver. He's a guy that I feel like Bill Belichick probably can come up with different type of ways to use him. And I think that if under Bill Belichick, I think that Deonte Hardy might have a lot of people just wondering why the Saints didn't attain him and keep him around, because I just think that he has a great skill set. I just think that he can be the focal point. And I just think that it depends on who is the coach, how they use him. But I think he's probably going to end up playing for the Patriots or something like that and end up being a really good, solid, difference maker with that team. But I mean, I think we can agree that the writing is on the wall when it comes to Deonte Hardy. I just think that it's just under a Dennis Allen New Orleans Saints team is just not a good fit. Next, we have Marcus Davenport. Davenport, who is a unrestricted free agent. Look, I said this before, so this might not be a surprise to absolutely no one, but it's time for Marcus Davenport to exit stage left. Now, I'm not saying that the guy can't be good. I'm not saying that the guy is just god awful. I just think that when I look at a guy, everybody just talking about potential. It's only so many times that you can just talk about a guy's potential. And I think it's kind of, to me, it's almost like the same thing when people start talking about Jameis Winston to some folk, right? Everybody talking about the upside of Jameis Winston, his arm strength, his ability, this, that, and the third. And people like, well, everybody's talking about it, but we ain't seeing it, right? But I think it's even worse because even though, people have their reservations about Jameis Winston has shown in moments and in spots that he can be a really good quarterback. When it comes to Davenport, I mean, he flashes, and then all of a sudden, you forget he's on a team for 3 to 4 weeks. I like Davenport. I hope that he bounces back. He had a lot of injuries and a lot of things that he went through. He had to rehab. I think that, he was out of shape. He looked like, doesn't look like he's in really good shape, like the best shape that he can possibly be in. No disrespect. I'm just calling it like it is. And honestly, man, I just think that some of the injuries that he's dealing with, I think that is messing with him psychologically and is affecting his play. Like everybody talking about, the pressures and look what Davenport did to the offensive line. He just slung him to the side, but it's not equating to any type of production. Like people start talking about all 22s and showing them slinging guys to the left and slinging guys to the right. But when you look at his stat line, one assisted tackle or something, no sacks, right? Like, I mean, I'm looking at this guy out here, and it's just not working, man. You can get much more than what you're getting from Marcus Davenport. And I'm pretty sure, like, if he goes to the right situation, he might end up landing on his feet. And I can tell you this right now, I would not be upset watching this guy succeed somewhere else, because I don't want to see this guy just flake out and just, just move. And people just like, man, this dude is a bum and a bust. I don't want to see that, man. I want to see this dude live up to his potential, even if it's not with the New Orleans Saints. But the New Orleans Saints can no longer sit around and allow this guy to try to develop. I don't look at that, right? And I wasn't talking, but I was actually watching the Herd with Colin Cowherd, and he had Sean Payton on his show almost every Monday, and Sean Payton was talking about you drafting a prototype, right? Getting a guy that's supposed to be a certain size at that particular position. Look, I just think that Sean Payton is a great coach, but in some cases, I just think that that's just some of the things that he says. I just think that's a little bit passé. Like getting guys, you can tell that Sean Payton has a certain, there's a certain prototype, a prototypical defensive lineman that he likes. He likes those guys that are like 6'6", 6'7", and because I think there was a guy that was at the combine. I don't know if it's Aiden Hutchinson or not. I don't know if it was one of those guys, but they end up doing really impressive on the bench pressing, right? I think they bench pressed like 225, like 30 some odd times. And Sean Payton tweeted, he was like, yeah, they doing that because of short arms. I'm like, yeah, but I want to say it may have been Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, how are those short arms working for him right now, right? He has 3 interceptions. He had Aiden Hutchinson, a defensive end, has more interceptions than any other safety or cornerback on the New Orleans Saints team. And you know what I'm saying? He has more sacks than at least about 4 or 5 of the guys that rotates on your defensive line. So all this stuff about, guys need to have long wingspan. I mean, they may have long wingspan, but they only got one move, the bull rush, right? They try to push the offensive lineman back into the pocket. Like, you need somebody that's going to be super athletic. Like the NFL is changing. It's changing. And the guys like that are like the 6'6", 6'7" guys, I'm looking around, and these guys aren't making plays like some of these guys like the Bosa brothers. I mean, the Bosa brothers, these guys like 260 apiece. Aiden Hutchinson, what are you, about 260 himself? Even Aaron Donald, for his position, like, he's undersized. I do not believe that Aaron Donald, who plays an interior lineman position, is 300 pounds. I do not believe that at all. Like, a lot of these guys that are on the smaller side, they're the ones that find success. I don't feel like it's a coincidence that you got guys like Kaden Ellis, who is out here getting sack after sack. Like, he's a linebacker, but Kaden Ellis maybe like 240, 250. It's the speed, it's the twitch, right? It's the finesse moves that come with them. It gives these big 300-pound offensive linemen fits. And I just think that when it comes to Davenport, I just think that, unless he can bull rush his way to the quarterback, he's not getting home. So I don't know if he needs to work with somebody. I don't know if it's a conditioning thing. I don't know what's going on, but you cannot sit around and wait for this guy to be everything that you want him to be. Like, I think it's time. I think it's time to move on from this. And then another thing, I think that it's not the fact that Marcus Davenport isn't good enough. This leads to the conversation or the topic that Derek just commented about Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo. I don't think Alontae Taylor is just that much better than Paulson Adebo. There are certain things and certain qualities I feel like players have that makes them better than the other. And it has absolutely nothing to do with athleticism, and it has absolutely nothing to do with speed. It has everything to do with a dog mentality. It's rather you got that dog in you or you don't. And I just think that when it comes to Davenport, I think he has the skill set to be a really good pass rusher. But I just think that he is missing that dog mentality. Like when I look at Marcus Davenport, I don't see toughness, because he is tough, but I don't see like that edge that you look at when you're looking at greats, or when you're looking at guys that are multi-time Pro Bowlers, or you're looking at guys, that are out here that may be undersized. They may come from a small school. You would think that Davenport, coming from UTSA, would have a huge chip on his shoulder. He would have a chip on his shoulder, being the size that he is, being the athletic freak that he is, having to go to a school like UTSA, not, in Texas, when you got Baylor, when you got the University of Texas, when you got Texas Tech, when you got Texas A&M, and all of those schools passed up on you, and you're going there. You would think that you would come into the league and be wrecking shop because, you didn't get the opportunity to go to one of those schools that were well known. But it just seemed like it's just something that's missing. That's the difference between a good player and a great player. There are players that are out here that are just happy to be there. They're just happy to be in a lineup. They look in the crowd. They see their mama sitting in section 400 and they can wave at them, and that's okay with them. And then they have these other guys out here, they are dialed in, they're focused, they're driven, and they got that dog in them, and they have that high motor. And it's hard for anybody to stop them. And you may stop on one play, but they're going to keep on coming after you, and they're going to try to get that quarterback down on the ground. And I feel like that is what is missing when it comes to Marcus Davenport. Like I said, I don't think that it has anything to do with his athleticism. I don't think it has anything to do with his abilities. I just think it has everything to do with that gear that you need, right? You need that screw loose in order to play the game of football and play it at an elite level. And I just think that is something that is missing. And I feel like that is the one thing that I feel like when it comes to Alontae Taylor that he has over Paulson Adebo. There was a couple weeks ago, Alontae Taylor was talking to the media, and he said straight up, he said, no disrespect, but, when I go out there, I'm coming after Marshawn Lattimore's job. Like, for him to say something like that, like, some people probably look at that like, oh, man, but no, I like it. I like it because it's saying, yeah, you may be, an all-pro talent. You may be a multi-time Pro Bowler. You may be a shutdown corner, but guess what? I'm coming for your job, and I want to be better than you. And when you can stand up there and say stuff like this, that is when you have that dog mentality. It's the moment when I realized that this dude was going to be something special, just like the same way when C.J. Gardner-Johnson, after the Saints played the 49ers, and that classic George Kittle run when he was on 4th and 2, and he got beat in coverage. I'm talking C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and he spoke to the media, and he said, man, I'm a rookie. He said, I'm going to make mistakes. He said, but hey, it is what it is. He said, we going to play next week. When I saw that, I was like, man, this dude is different. When Alontae Taylor started talking about he coming after Marshawn Lattimore's job, I knew he was different. That is when you can, that's the difference between, a guy that just out there and a guy that has the undying will to be the absolute best. And if a guy doesn't have that, sometimes no matter how talented they are, no matter how gifted they are, there are times where maybe a guy may show up on Sunday and talk some noise. Maybe, that guy may have a reputation of being, a stone wall or something like that on the offensive line. And he might have that level of intimidation where you probably thinking in the back of your mind, I don't think I'm going to win this matchup. And if you have that in the back of your mind, more than likely, you're probably right. But let me read some of your comments. Let's see. Yella says, Trey Hendrickson has short arms, and look what happened. Exactly. But the thing about it is, Yella, once again, it's that dog mentality. The dude had a high motor. He never stopped. Like, if you look at Trey Hendrickson doesn't have a million pass rushing moves. He doesn't. He goes after these offensive linemen with brute force, and he just wears them down over the course of time. And you need that. Once again, it's that animal instinct that you need to play positions at a high level. Winston has Drew, old quarterback coach, and his OC. He should have already learned something by now. Well, here's the thing. My dog, I think that when we look at, Jameis Winston had Pete Carmichael, or he had, Drew Brees. I mean, if you look at Pete Carmichael, I mean, look at Pete Carmichael. Let's just keep it a buck. It's pretty obvious that the offense that the Saints are running is not the same when Sean Payton was the one calling the plays for the majority of the time. It doesn't look the same. And I just think that it's hypocritical of us to not acknowledge that. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to be able to acknowledge that. We can't ignore that just for that because it doesn't fit our agenda. Sean Payton not being with the New Orleans Saints matters, right? His ability to be able to see things that the quarterback don't see, to help them, for them to like kind of navigate throughout the game, it is greatly missed, right? Is a testament to his greatness. There's a reason why Jameis Winston played at such a high level. He played at such a high level, higher than he probably ever played in his NFL career under Sean Payton. There's a reason. And there's a reason why, when Sean Payton left, you started to see some things, that you probably seen before. They probably resemble why you feel like you were skeptical about him in the first place. But I just think that anybody that is out here just saying, oh man, Jameis had this, Jameis had that, and not looking at the fact that he ain't got Sean Payton anymore, like that's not a big issue. It is. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, it's almost like Mike Tyson, right? Mike Tyson's first trainer was a guy by the name of Customato. Customato was an older, Italian gentleman who basically took Mike Tyson under his wing when he was 14 years old and turned him into the youngest heavyweight champion of the world. The thing about it is Customato was pretty up there in age when Mike Tyson was relatively young. Mike Tyson did not, he started his career, he became the heavyweight champion of the world, but Customato wasn't around afterwards. And there was a reason why I feel like he kind of went off the deep end, right? You start to see like his performance change. You start to see like his style change. You start to see him not really taking things more seriously. It's a difference when you have a guy like a Customato versus, some other trainer that you probably don't have anymore. That you're going to see a difference. You're going to see a difference when you have a top-notch coach in Sean Payton and he's no longer with the team. It's going to affect some guys. It's going to affect guys' performances. It's going to affect the offense. It's going to affect the way that the numbers that they're putting up. It's going to affect everything around the team. So if we're going to be talking about Jameis Winston, talking about what he ain't doing, we can at least sit up here and say, hey, man, Sean Payton ain't here. Like, I don't understand why anybody just can't look at the fact that maybe this dude wasn't giving you what you wanted was because of Sean Payton. Sean Payton plays a huge role in what the Saints have done and what they have become over the last almost 20 years. So that's the way I'm looking at it. I think that Sean Payton's absence played a huge role. And here's the thing. I'm not going to criticize Jameis Winston because we didn't even give Jameis Winston the ability or opportunity to turn things around. Like we didn't even give him a chance. What we did was we took our skepticism from when he first came to the team and we added that on, and we're like, well, you see, that's why we don't want him. But we didn't give this dude an opportunity to actually turn it around. And I don't feel bad about saying this because here's the reason why. What people celebrate and talk about how great Joe Burrow is, justifiably so. But if you look at Joe Burrow over the first 3 weeks of the season, he had more interceptions thrown than Jameis Winston did. He was playing really, really bad, right? I think the first game he threw like 4 interceptions in one game. But nobody was willing to just completely just write him off and be like, oh man, that Super Bowl hangover, it was just an outlier. He's not that good. That's all I'm saying is our thoughts and views and feelings about Jameis Winston when he first got to the team, and the reason why we didn't care for him, we felt like we were justified in any line of trouble that we saw. We didn't care. We just wanted to get it how we wanted it. Like, we don't care how we get it. We don't care about the back injury. We don't care about the ACL or any foot injury that he's dealing with. The only thing that we cared about was being right at the end of the day. We don't know how this season would have turned out for him. We can say, oh, man, he would have been throwing interception after interception after interception. We don't know that for sure. We don't know if he would have been throwing a multiple interceptions or if this dude would have had the Saints playing at a high level. I can tell you this. You probably would have seen more. You would have seen bigger plays. You probably would have seen the playbook truly open up. You probably would have seen Chris Olave get to 1,000 yards a lot faster. And you definitely probably would have seen Alvin Kamara probably catching more passes out of the backfield. I can tell you that right now. But, I mean, we sit up here and act like, okay, we seen a couple games, or I've seen enough. We didn't even get this dude the opportunity really to turn it around. And the reason I feel like they didn't do that is because I don't think that Dennis Allen or Pete Carmichael felt like they had what it took. I'm sorry. Look, it is what it is. They felt like they didn't have what it takes to reel in Jameis Winston. And they felt like a guy like Andy Dalton was more of somebody that's on their speed, and I just think that it took a special coach to take a gamble on a guy like Jameis Winston, and it was Sean Payton. And I don't think those guys had the confidence in themselves to be able to feel like they could have put Jameis Winston in the best position to succeed. That's just how I feel. And I just think that they felt like it was much easier to go with a guy like Andy Dalton, who probably you already know what he gonna do. At the end of the day, he ain't gonna surprise you. He ain't gonna try to go out there and try to make the play. He gonna just go out there and just be as conservative as they've been all season long. So all I'm saying is, man, we can't just sit up here. Like, we can't just sit up here and just be like, okay, man, we already know what was going to happen. No, we don't. We don't know what's going to happen. This dude, he probably could have, threw some interceptions, or he probably could have just turned it around. But sitting up here saying that, oh, he would have did this, he would have did that, we don't know. That's cool, TJ. I respect that, but Jameis ain't it sorry. 6-4 part of the year doesn't change my view. Well, look, all I'm saying is it ain't got to change your view, but all I'm saying is the dude never really had an opportunity to, turn anything around or be able to change anything. Like, he didn't. As soon as, the first line of trouble started to happen, I guess they felt like, oh, man, this ain't it, we don't want to go down this road, or, we're going to go with Andy. Because, I mean, to me, I felt like that was their plan the whole time. I think they wanted Andy to be the starter, but they didn't want to alienate the fan base. They didn't want to alienate the locker room. So I think that Jameis came into the season on a short leash, and I just felt like anywhere it went, they probably were going to try to get away from him anyway, because Andy Dalton is who they really wanted, because they felt like, he was more on their speed. So, but I don't know. Like I said, I just I would rather I don't want to I don't want to tell a person how the book is going to be because I just read 3 pages. Like, I don't know how the book going in just because I read 3 pages. That's all I'm saying. Like, we got to see the whole thing. But I mean, I'm not trying to turn this into I know how it can go when people start talking about Jameis Winston. Everybody want to talk about, oh, this happened. Like, I'm not going to turn this show or turn this episode into the Jameis Winston hour, like how we normally do every time we talk about, oh, is Pete Carmichael fault? Oh, I don't want to do this, man. So we're going to move on from that, and we're going to talk about something else. Let me see if I can read, a couple more comments. Let's see. Once again, what about Traquan Smith? What about Traquan Smith? I'm going to hit you with that.
Hell no. To the no. Hell to the no.
That's over for him. It's over for him. Traquan Smith had ample opportunities, just like I feel like Davenport has had, and it just didn't pan out. It just didn't pan out, so I just feel like it's over. I think it's time for him to move on. There's always going to be a space for him somewhere. I'm pretty sure, like he'll end up playing for somebody. You know, he ended up playing for somebody's team. You know, I don't think that his career is over, but as a New Orleans Saint, I think it's over. I'm sorry, man. I'm no disrespect to Jameis Winston, but I think it's just time for us to move on from this. I mean, I get it. You know, like I said, every time Jameis Winston's name come up, you know, it elicits all these different type of emotions and stuff like that, man. But I'd rather talk about, you know, some of these other things. I think we just basically just, you know, are insane at this particular point. Like we talk, you know, we doing the same thing over and over again. We're expecting a different result. And it's not going to happen. Like how you feel about them is not going to change. The way another person feel about them is not going to change. You're not going to change anybody's mind. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to go to Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry had that big game in week 1. You know, they had that big catch that went over 100 yards, you know, against the Atlanta Falcons, and then dealt with knee injuries. And it just seemed like, you know, he just couldn't never get right. It seemed like he was, you know, always injured. And that's one of the main reasons why I feel like the free agency market was just so small for him going into the season. And I think that he signed his 1-year deal because he thought he'll make a stop with the New Orleans Saints, you know, make some plays, get some touchdowns, put some yards up, and then he'll be able to name his price going back out here in free agency again. But it just didn't pan out. Look, Jarvis Landry, to me, look, I don't know if it's the fact that he was hurt or the fact that he just, you know, really legitimately is running like he has a piano on his back as of right now. But you can find something way, way, way better than what Jarvis Landry has given you. Jarvis Landry has done absolutely nothing in the Saints uniform outside of week 1. Like, seriously, except drop passes, and you forget that he was out there. I got a lot of respect for Jarvis Landry. I know this might be blasphemous for a lot of people that LSU fans that has watched this dude in college and watched him early in his career with Miami, but it is what it is. He is not what the Saints need at this particular point. Like, you can get yourself a guy late in one of these rounds in the NFL draft, and you can get this guy be opposite of Chris Olave, and he probably going to be able to make some plays for you. And not to mention that you have found something in Rashid Shaheed, who I feel like probably when he gets off season workout, when he's able to take part in some of these OTAs and mini camp and training camp, he probably will end up being a really good threat alongside Chris Olave. Don't know what you're going to do with Michael Thomas, but even if Michael Thomas does not come back or you decide to do something different with Michael Thomas, at least you know that you got 2 young bulls out there that are going to be able to make some plays. I don't know if the New Orleans Saints want to get themselves another veteran out there, a guy that can go alongside these guys that can probably give you something that Michael Thomas kind of gave you. Not Michael Thomas because we know how special he is, but somebody that can give you some of those tough catches, be able to make some of those contested catches. I don't know what you're going to do, but I will say this, you know, you got something with these 2 young guys. And if you want to add another young guy to it, fine, but Jarvis Landry don't need to be in the conversation going into this offseason. I hope that he ends up going to another team where he can bounce back and resurrect his career and do some things or what have you, you know, but we'll see. And then not only that, you know, this could be one of those situations where who knows, man, you might end up, you know, having a guy like Chris Olave, might end up having a guy like Rashid Shaheed. It depends on the quarterback you have. Hey, we might get another LSU Tiger. Maybe Odell Beckham Jr. might end up finding his way to New Orleans. I know that might be, you know what I'm saying, something that's interesting. You know, it depends on who your quarterback is. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, he's the type of guy, you know, he already won a Super Bowl. And I think he pretty much, you know, already solidified himself. So now he's probably want to go somewhere where, you know, he can just, you know, play and just have fun and have a good time. So we'll see. You know, we'll see. But let's go ahead and we'll go to Juwan Johnson, who is a restricted free agent, which is a little bit different. All right. Restricted free agent is a team can't offer you a contract. Right. And the team that you play for, you know, can counter offer it. Right. So if you go out there and be like, OK, this team is offering me, I don't know, 3 years, I don't know, $21 million or something like that. We were like, okay, well, we'll offer you 3 years, $22 million. Well, you know, and then on top of that, you can also, you know, sign a clause where, you know, they can negotiate with, someone else. So I just, the way I look at it, it's a no-brainer for me. I mean, Juwan Johnson has been one of the bright spots of this New Orleans Saints team. Like now, be that as it may, he's dropped some passes, right? He dropped some passes that in crucial moments. Did it last week. And did it in Cleveland. I mean, I'll let you slide with that one because it was cold as all get out. But for the most part, like the guy has really stepped up and he has really embraced the tight end role. Like he could have easily been like, man, I'm a wide receiver. This is ridiculous, and then embrace it. But it seemed like he has. And also, I want to say this also, man, congratulations to Juwan Johnson and his wife. They're expecting their first child. So shouts out to you, Juwan. If you're watching this right now, man, shouts out to you, man. Outstanding job. You know what I'm saying? You've done this whole entire season. Wish you all the success and congratulations once again to, on the, it's a great time. You know what I'm saying? When you find out that you're going to be a parent. It's a great thing, man. So shouts out to Juwan Johnson. But to me, it's pretty much a no-brainer. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much a no-brainer. I think that Juwan Johnson should be about as safe as anybody on this list. He to me, he's probably top priority. Like he's top priority. Looking at this list, I'm looking at guys. I think that he probably like is first priority for everybody. Everybody on this list. Like, yeah. Looking at this list, I think he should be top priority. He's the guy that should be paid. I feel like he should get paid before David Yamada does. Yes, I just said that. Yes, I really do feel that way. And lastly, an individual we're going to talk about, I feel like that's just worth discussing is Kaden Ellis. Kaden Ellis had a really good solid season. As I pull up his stats here, I'm going to try to pull up Kaden Ellis' stats so I can kind of let you all know exactly, what we're actually been dealing with. Kaden Ellis has been with the Saints for quite some time, been there for a few years, came out of the University of Idaho. I want to say he was a 7th-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken. He was a guy that was just supposed to just contribute on special teams, maybe make the team, maybe not. But he has really come into his own this season. He has 41 tackles, 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Kaden Ellis has had an up and down career. He played mostly on special teams. He was kind of a rotation guy. He dealt with some injuries. I know it was a few years ago he was actually out for the season. But he has definitely emerged as one of the top players on defense, and he has been a bright spot. He has been up there with the Juwan Johnsons. He has been up there with the Rashid Shaheeds. But I will say this, I'm always very skeptical. I am always very skeptical when guys are on a contract year and they balling out of control. I'm just wondering. But I will say this. Every time the guy balls out, they end up being a contract year. The Saints end up letting them go. They end up going to another team, and they end up playing much, much better. Case in point, Trey Hendrickson had one of his best seasons, had 15 and a half sacks or something like that. His last season with the New Orleans Saints, goes to Cincinnati, get that big contract, doubles down on it. You had Marcus Williams, had one of his best defensive seasons. Saints didn't sign him back, signs a 3-year, $72 million contract with Baltimore before he got injured. I want to say he has 4 interceptions as of right now, and he missed about 5 or 6 games, which is incredible. All right. I mean, the list goes on and on. You got Von Bell. Von Bell was playing out his mind this last year with the New Orleans Saints. Ended up signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now he's one of the captains of the defense, and he is one of the leaders in interceptions in the National Football League. All I'm saying is I think that you might want to re-sign Kaden Ellis, all right? This is not one of those situations. I'm skeptical about this because you wonder, where a guy is. Is a guy just, out there playing because he understands that he can go out here and name his price on some progressive stuff? He can name his price. Or is he really just inspired and this is just him turning a corner? I think this is Kaden Ellis turning a corner. And you do not want to let a guy like this go. You look at a guy like Demario Davis. I mean, he's still contributing in a major way, but he's still getting up there in age. You got Pete Warner, who is playing really well, but you need Kaden Ellis on his team. You need Kaden Ellis on his team, and he's a guy that can probably end up being one of those guys that can be a pass rusher that can give you double-digit sacks throughout the year. So I definitely feel like you need to keep him. He's a guy that I feel like you definitely want to sign back, and I don't think it should be a mistake. Now, if I'm looking at it in order, I'm saying Juwan Johnson is first, Kaden Ellis is second, probably Davion Yamada, in my opinion, would be third. I mean, I don't know what the Saints' top priority would be, but that would be the way I feel about it. AKA says, if we can get Troutman going, we will have a Pat level tight end duo. Look, I just think that sometimes we have these expectations for guys, and if a guy doesn't live up to the expectations, we just kind of just throw him away. I think when you look at a guy like Adam Troutman, he came into the league out of the University of Dayton, and he was a pass catching tight end, right? And the talk was, well, if he can learn how to be a better blocker, then he can probably be up there with Rob Gronkowski. I felt like he had like that type of ability. But then all of a sudden, I just feel like he embraced that tight end role to a point where he became a better blocker than he did a pass catcher. But here's the reality, folks. You don't have to be Travis Kelce. Like, you don't have to be, like a George Kittle. Like, you don't have to be like one of these guys like this. Like, the Saints would get guys like Benjamin Watson. They would get guys like Jerry Cook. But guess who they had on the other side? They had, they had another tight end. They had Josh Hill. You know what I'm saying? Josh Hill was not a very good pass catcher. And most of the time, the same catches that you see Adam Troutman catch, those were the same type of catches Josh Hill would catch. But Josh Hill was more of a blocker. So it's not like there's not a place for a guy like Adam Troutman. He's just not what we expected for him to be. But thank goodness, Juwan Johnson is becoming what we need him to be. The guy that can be like the Benjamin Watson, the guy that can be, like the Jared Cook, the guy that is the pass catching tight end that can get you that yak, that can get you them touchdowns in the red zone. So I just think that when we look at tight ends, the position has changed so much that we look at it like, oh, if you're not Travis Kelce, oh, if you're not Rob Gronkowski, oh, if you're not George Kittle, oh, if you're not Dallas Goedert, then you're not good enough. Like, I think we tend to forget sometimes, like, tight ends' job for the most part is to block. And if you look at Adam Troutman, I mean, he's a pretty good blocker, for at the tight end position. So it's not like you don't need him, you know what I'm saying? Because he's a better blocker than Juwan Johnson is. So there's still a place for him. Yeah, I just think that when it comes to us, like, thinking like he's going to be Gronk or he's going to be, one of these other top premier tight ends, I just think that we just need to lower our expectations about who Adam Troutman actually is. But based on like what I'm seeing as far as him being, a blocking tight end, he does a good job. Excuse me. My thoughts at a wide receiver, Key Michael Thomas, because he's just that dog like you were talking about when he's healthy. Number 2 could be Chris Olave. Number 3, Rashid Shaheed, and then get Quentin Johnston from TCU in the draft. Well, that's not bad. Cool Sports. Look, I think that if you're going to keep Michael Thomas, you cannot just put emphasis on Michael Thomas like you would have this season. Like, you got to play it as if, okay, we want him to be here, but he may not be here, if that makes sense, right? So you want to put emphasis on, like, guys like the Chris Olaves, like the Rashid Shaheeds. Like, you got to open up your playbook in order for them to be able to thrive, because there's a strong possibility, and we've seen this over the last 2 seasons, that Michael Thomas may not be in the plan. So you cannot just build your team around him or play the wait and see game, waiting on Michael Thomas to actually come around and be that wide receiver. If he does, great. But if he doesn't, like, it is what it is, But at the end of the day, having these type of guys that can give you this type of production is a really good thing. It's a really good thing. Oh, he's talking about Gronk and Hernandez. I thought he was talking about the current past tight ends. I hope not. Well, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Nah, Hunter Henry, he's not bad. I just think that when he had like all those injuries early in his career with the Chargers, kind of slowed him down because he was a beast in Arkansas. When he was at the University of Arkansas, he was really, really good. Finding a OC should be first order of business, and then find a quarterback to run his system. I agree with that. I think that you cannot keep one and keep the other. Rather that's Dennis Allen or Pete Carmichael, and it looked like they're gonna keep Dennis Allen, so I don't think you need to keep Pete Carmichael. But I'm pretty sure like how this is gonna go to save face for Pete Carmichael. They probably gonna make an announcement that Pete Carmichael stepped down. He resigned or something like it. It's gonna be something of that magnitude where it's not gonna be like, oh, we firing you. It's gonna be like, oh, he stepped down, and he might end up finding himself, as an executive or somewhere with the Saints, or he might find himself somewhere coaching with Sean Payton on his coaching staff, wherever he may be next year. This title says after the 2022 season, it's already after for the Aints via the Cannons. Yeah, okay. They'll probably just kick Mike into the slot and start Rashid and Olave outside, or maybe draft JSN to replace Landry. Even though you have bigger needs, it wouldn't hurt. Yeah, I think that if you get yourself another wide receiver, I wouldn't be mad. But I mean, look, it's not like top priority like I was like this past draft. What up, TJ? What are your thoughts on Derek Carr coming to our team in 2023 season? Andy Dalton needs trade to Las Vegas Raiders if Sean Payton is coming back to our team for head coach and Dennis Allen going to get fired or going back to the defensive coordinator position. I hope Derek Carr going to help with offensive line in next season. Pete Carmichael needs to go and get another offensive coordinator, though, is my opinion. It's a lot there. As far as the Derek Carr comment, I wouldn't be mad at Derek Carr, coming to the New Orleans Saints. I think that he's a solid guy. I think that he can win you some games. I think that he can facilitate some comebacks. I think he has that type of ability. Andy Dalton trading him to the Raiders, I think that's highly unlikely. And plus, on top of that, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So once the season is over, he's no longer a member of the Saints unless they re-sign him. Sean Payton coming back to our team, I don't know if that's going to happen, especially like since how things have been going with Dennis Allen. I don't see Sean Payton coming back. I don't think Sean Payton really wanted to coach the Saints like that anyway. So I think he kind of happy and excited that the Saints are turning the corner with Dennis Allen. I think the Saints do need some help on offensive line. I think they need help at the guard position. I think it's time for them to draft a guy or sign a guy in the free agency. Maybe it's time to move on from Andrews Pete. And as far as the offensive coordinator with Pete Carmichael, I think that he'll end up like going somewhere else and maybe being with Sean Payton. But I think he'll end up stepping down because I don't think the Saints going to be like trying to embarrass him or something like that. Oh, they fired Pete Carmichael. Because there were times when Pete Carmichael, helped the Saints in tough situations. He helped them in like tough situations. You know what I'm saying? He won some games for him this year by some of the things that he did. There were games where Dennis Allen looked inept and Pete Carmichael looked like the star. And there were games where Dennis Allen looked like the star and Pete Carmichael looked inept. So, that's the way it is. We got 234 people watching this right now. I ask that you hit the like button if you have not already. And if you're new, hit the subscription button. Trade Mike T, tank for 5 seasons to find a franchise quarterback, fix salary cap, and win the Super Bowl. Easy plan.
Hell no. To the no. Hell to the no.
I am not trying to look at the Saints fail for 5 seasons. No. No way. Pete Carmichael going with Payton, and we're going to be stuck with DA. Oh, Lord. Well, I put it like this, and I said this before. If you can find a guy that has that's the opposite of Dennis Allen, I think you will be okay. I mean, because look, One thing you can say about Dennis Allen is that he can coach defense. And if you can find a guy that's offensive coordinator that can help this team and, you know what I'm saying, put up points on the board and come with some offensive innovation, I think it'll be a good combination. I don't know if you'll win a Super Bowl, but you'll win some games. I can tell you that, you know. I think that you just need somebody that's just opposite of that. I just think that Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen are pretty much the same. I think they're the same type of guy. Let's see. Tom Brady will retire officially and never come back to play. Enjoy being loser sucking there, fan. Fire the cannons. They gonna just be dusty in the museum once Brady leaves. Yes, definitely need to be looking into replacing Pete. Yeah, I agree with that. Your thoughts on the Skip Bayless situation? I kind of talked about that in depth yesterday, Jordan. Also, man, if you check out Twitter, TJ Jones 8, TJY Jones 8, I actually put a clip up of me actually talking about it. You know, I kind of went in depth with it. You know, and you know, it kind of explains my thoughts and my feelings about that whole Skip Bayless situation. I just, you know, it's unfortunate. I think we all can agree with that, but you know, like I said, I explained it in complete detail. If you follow on Twitter or you go to my the State of the Saints podcast Facebook page, you'll be able to check that out too. I posted it there as well. That's the trade Dalton to Atlanta, unless you think he is a $25 million quarterback that should start 14 games for you. Why would Atlanta want Andy Dalton? I think I think that Atlanta got the right guy and Ritter. You know, I think Ritter is going to be a good quarterback. He doesn't lack confidence, I can tell you that. And that's the thing that you need in order for you to be a successful quarterback. I think we looked at Desmond Ritter. Oh, he a rookie, man. That dude going to be a problem in a couple of years. Like if he keeps that same mind frame, the Saints better find a quarterback because they're going to be in some shootouts. Reload AK Davenport Pete Eagles the Empire Strikes Back. Hope not. The only person I agree with on that was the AK. You know, let's see. Saints a OC with a track record and someone who can challenge the players in DA. That's why I say like Frank Reich. If Frank Reich can get a head coaching job, please, pretty please, let him come to New Orleans. I love that Frank Reich. Guy's a smart guy. He's a good coach. You know, Indianapolis just some idiots. Saints should go after Jim Harbaugh, get rid of DA. It's a business. Remember what's best for the team. Jim Harbaugh is even talking about coming back to the NFL. Saints front office is making me angry right now. Well, you know, I just think that they maybe think that, you know, these games that they've been winning, they feel like the Saints are going in the right direction. Well, heck, we don't know what they're thinking. We'll find out, though, real soon. I already read that one. Also, a short yardage running back to pair alongside AK. I agree with that. They definitely need that. And finally, two things for 2023: keep Kaden Ellis and draft Tulane running back. Yeah, I think I think a lot of people want, you know, him, especially after what they seen at the Cotton Bowl, which was impressive, man. That was absolutely impressive by the Tulane Green Wave. Unbelievable. I mean, Caleb Williams lighting it up, 5 touchdowns. You got Braden Rice, son of Jerry Rice, out there, you know what I'm saying, catching everything that come his way. And all these guys did was just don't give up and just fight to the end. And USC wide receiver who tried to field the kick just made one of the most boneheaded decisions. I don't know, man. Somebody need to check, see if that boy had a phone call from a bookie. Because my goodness, that looked like some old stage fix type stuff I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know if he got paid 20 G's like this documentary I was watching. I'm only joking when I'm saying this, folks. Don't take this serious. But that was just a bad play, man. I mean, that was just, man, that was like, you ever like play football or play a video game with your, you know, your little cousin or your little brother or something like that, and you're beating the brakes off of them and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, like, you kind of look over and you kind of see him like kind of tearing up because he really wants to score and he can't. So you like, oh man, well, let me just do something crazy. Let me run out of bounds when I don't need to. Let me go back in and act like, oh, I pressed the wrong button. You know what I'm saying? Just to give them a safety. That's kind of like what it looked like in this game. You know, like, huh? Like, how can you make a play like that at that time? I get it. Like, if you ever been in that situation when it's, you know, like down to the wire, man, you do get a little nervous. You do be shaking a little bit. You know what I mean? You like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to mess up. You do be thinking about that stuff in the back of your mind. But my goodness, what a bad time to make a play like that. But Tulane ended up winning the game. Best turnaround, probably in one of the greatest turnarounds in college football history. They were like 2-10 last year. They're 2-10, now they 12-2. Like that's unbelievable. That is unfreaking believable, man. Shouts out to the Tulane Green Wave. I know Maddie. Shouts out to Maddie. Who that? Man, I know she was on cloud nine out there. Shouts out to Ross also, man. I mean, look, I got a special place in my heart for the Tulane Green Waves. Like I said, man, I remember like going to all their home games during that magical year when they went undefeated, when Sean King was their quarterback, when they were playing in the Superdome. So shouts out to Tulane winning the Cotton Bowl, man, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably didn't think they had a chance. Oh, Caleb Williams, he just won the Heisman Trophy, and they bested the Heisman Trophy winner, you know, so shouts out to him. And shouts out to you. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. Previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. Check us out on Facebook.com. Search The State of the Saints podcast, and you can follow me on Twitter at TJAY Jones 8. Once again, TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?